This is WOR, AM and FM New York, and RKO General Station.
Hey, boys and girls. I'd like to start out by asking everybody a question.
What is the airspeed velocity of an unladen swallow?
What do you mean? African or European swallow?
No, not really a hard question.
What is your favorite color?
Not quite that easy either. Okay, it's a hypothetical. A hypothetical question is just kind of a pretend question or putting yourself into a situation. Now, it's tax season. Nobody likes doing their taxes. Mrs. RW and I have to get our taxes done. I'm generally not looking forward to it, but it's something you have to do every year. Now, if you're getting a refund this year, you know, swap meet season and Hamfest and the like, they're all around the corner. So you might be thinking to yourself, why might I want to get something nice for myself? Well, since we've been on the subject matter for recently with a lot of AM, FM radios, what if you were trying to get yourself a really nice AM, FM portable radio, you know, like old school, and just to have one really nice radio for yourself? Well, I actually have a couple. So we'll review both, and these two radios are what I would consider probably some of the best AM FM radio portable radios out there. So let's go over them and let me show you what I like and what I don't like about them, and then you can make your own judgment. Okay, this is my Zenith Royal 2000. This was supposedly, allegedly, the first AM FM portable radio that was ever made by Zenith. So we're going to review this, and then the other radio we're going to talk about. This is General Electric Super Radio. And both of these radios are very, very nice radios, and both of these radios are in my collection. So let's start with the Zenith, and we'll go over all the good and the bad about that. Okay, so you might be looking at this thing and you're saying to yourself, well, geez, does this radio look a lot like a Royal 3000 Transoceanic? Well, truth be known is it's basically just that. It's a 3001 or 3000 Transoceanic, except it doesn't have shortwave. It's just purely AM and FM. Controls are real simple. Over here, where I got the pointer, is the volume control, and then there's a bigger knob on the outside. It's a dial for the tuning. And then if you look up here, you can see this is kind of cool looking actually. It's got two round dials. The one on the left is for FM, and the one on the right is for AM. And they both are basically tied together via a tuning string, and shows you where the tuning is. Okay, over here you have your controls, just AM, FM, and FM, AM, AFC in the middle. And then you just have a single tone control here where you can tune to both bass and treble. And continuing on with the Zenith, the AM antenna is actually built into the handle. It's inside the handle here. This radio does have a tuned RF, by the way, so it's very good, very excellent sensitivity and selectivity for this radio. The FM antenna is just a kind of a built-in pair of rabbit ears. Remember the days of the 50s and 60s TVs, especially the portables, they had a pair of small antenna attached to it, and that's what this does here. So let me spin around and open up the back. Okay, opening up the back, a little screw here, put a couple turns on it, and it should open up. Okay, and there it is, there's the back. Over here we've got, well, let me get my pointer, the speaker is right here, little 5x7 oval. Sound is actually pretty good. It almost sounds like almost as good as a tube radio. I mean, it's really got audio that's really, really nice. It's got your two output transistors here and push-pull. Here's where the antennas connect right here, this red wire going across here. Also, that one thing that's cool about this radio that it has here, it says here it's got a little jack here for, it says tuner, but you could actually hook up if you got an MP3 player in your phone, and if you've got music in your phone, you could actually use this to play your music through. Let me show you how that works. Okay, I've connected one side of my stereo output off my iPad here. And let me turn this on. Okay. And I'll turn on my iPod so you can actually hear what this sounds like here. Okay, let me turn that off there. So you could actually play your music through these too if you wanted to do that. So I think that's kind of a cool feature. Okay, now there's, you look down here, there's a battery pack here. Let me just raise these antennas up a little bit, get some room, and let me pull the batteries out. And this can run, and get a better shot of this. Let's see here. You can actually run this thing on 8 D batteries. And one thing that's kind of cool is if you have a bunch of C batteries that are on the weak side, this thing actually will fit 5 C batteries in here. You know, but I would use the used ones instead of putting in new ones, because then otherwise you put all this together, you're going to be well over 14 volts, and that's probably where you don't want to run the radio at. Now, one thing that this radio is lacking is it does not have a 120 volt jack or a wall wart. You know, like for example the 3000-1 transoceanic has a wall wart that you could use and run the radio off 12 volt wall wart, but this doesn't have that. Supposedly, allegedly, Zenith had made some later ones. They started making these in 1959, but there were supposedly some later ones that were made right around 63 or so, and newer that supposedly were 2001s that actually had the had that on there. So I've never seen one. They might have them out there. So anyway, I just figured I'd show that to you. Okay, now here's the other radio I wanted to talk about. This is the General Electric Super Radio. This is also an AM/FM radio, and this is probably, I would say this is arguably the best AM/FM portable radio out there. I mean, the Zenith is really nice, but it doesn't meet this radio at all for any number of reasons. Let me explain. This particular radio is a Super Radio 2. It's a second generation Super Radio. You can see that down here. And the first generation Super Radio is pretty similar to this. I think that the Super Radio 2 is a little bit more desirable in the respect that you got this big, I think this is a 6-inch speaker here, and then you even have a little bit of a tweeter up in here, so you literally have 2 speakers. The Super Radio, the original Super Radio, looks identical to this, except there's just 1 speaker here. Okay, so this one actually has the 2. There's actually a 3rd generation. I should bring this up. There is a 3rd generation Super Radio. I think that some of them were actually well, I think they were all made by General Electric or somebody, but some of them were branded RCA, and I've seen some other ones too. And they're basically all black in color, and they're not quite as good as these because they use slug tuning, and it just kind of took away from some of the AM DXability. The controls here are pretty straightforward. Let me bring this up a little bit so you can see it better. Right here is the on-off switch. Here is a button. Turns the radio on and off here. It's your tuning knob. You have here, let me get the camera pointed down a little bit, band switch for both AM, which is down, and FM up high. And then you have automatic fine control of the FM switch here. And here's where this radio really shines. Here's your volume control down here. It just says loudness. But you also have separate bass and treble controls. And this radio really sounds nice for a non-stereo radio.
Rear camera and long-lasting battery life. Sure. See, we just don't have the time to cover it all in 30.
Probably right.
Switch to Cricket and get a free Samsung Galaxy Amp Prime 3. Smile.
This is not really doing anything for the...
And a lot more.
Find a music station. I don't want to get banged by the YouTube police, but trust me, that thing sounds really, really nice. You know, as compared to the Zenith, the Zenith just doesn't have the highs there. It's more of a warm tube sounding feeling you get from it. There is a mod you could actually do to the Zenith. There's a 0.33 microfarad capacitor, and you can either just change that out to a significantly a lower value, or you could just clip it all together and get your highs that way. So basically over here, let me get it here. I don't want the lights giving me a reflection that I don't want. Here, let me just try to turn this off altogether and see what that looks like. Nah, it's not cutting it. But anyway, here's your tuning in this area for AM and FM. And they're even touting that it's high sensitivity. And let me tell you something. This is really a good, sensitive, and selective radio on both AM and FM. The Zenith is pretty good, but I'm afraid this trumps the Zenith. So let me show you what's out back. Okay, now here's what the back of the Super Radio looks like. And this thing is just so cool. It even has... in the back, even though this radio was made in the 70s, it still has terminals in the back for an external FM antenna. There's a ground here and an AM terminal. So if you wanted to put a really, you know, so if you really wanted to put a nice antenna on here, you could. Now down here, we got the batteries. Whoop, it looks like they're going to come right out. This takes... particular radio takes 6, and they all just came out. 60 batteries, as you can see here. Okay, for a total of 9 volts. And as a bonus, you can see here to the left. Let me get my pointer again. Get the light out so you can see right here. There's an electrical cord right here. You could take this out and plug this in as well. So you have as a battery and electric power for this particular radio, whereas with the Royal 2000 you only have battery power only, unless you want to run a ward through there and hand wire it in there. So you know, those are your options right there. Okay, now I have both radios tuned into an FM station out in New York playing classical music, and what I've done is I've set up both radios so that the tone is just basically flat. Okay, so I'm going to turn on the Zenith first. I'll let you hear that, and then I'll turn on the General Electric, and I'll let you hear that. So first the Zenith.
Sweet.
Okay, and now the GE.
Beautiful song for orchestra from the English composer, 20th century female composer.
Well,
that was Rumen Gamba conducting the BBC National Orchestra. Chopin coming up in a moment.
Experience a world of emotions in music in our
Alright, so as you can see that there's definitely a bigger, much better frequency response out of the Super Radio than the Royal 2000, although both radios sound pretty good. But if you really are really into your music and you want to hear you know, a better reproduction of your sound, I would say the Super Radio is the winner. But then again, the Zenith does have the MP3 input in the back, so you know, you could play your phonograph. You've got a 45 RPM standalone phono, you could put it in the back there too. So, okay, so basically I guess I'm putting the nod more toward the GE. The GE is definitely a much better radio than the Zenith, although the Zenith is actually still pretty good. I would say that from a DXability standpoint on AM, I would give this a 9 out of 10, and then from FM sensitivity and playability standpoint, I'd give it about an 8 out of 10. The Super Radio's got to be a 10 out of 10 in both cases. It's just so good. So basically, you know, the Super Radio does have the AM cord or the electric cord built into it. The Zenith, you'd probably have to either go through a bunch of batteries or find a wart that'll do 12 volts at maybe a half an amp, and then just make some kind of manual connector to the battery tray or something, some kind of mod there. But the Zenith does have the input for the phonograph. So anyway, there you go. I give you both radios. I can't get both of them in the picture.